Hi everyone, welcome to webcast 2 of week 12 for InDesign 1. I decided to push up the webcast of spot colors before the workflows because I thought you were going to need this sooner than the other one. The lab for this week is going to require that you create 2 postcards. This is going to be a pretty straightforward lab. I think really the time that's going to be involved in this is how much time you want to put into the design. But essentially, you're going to create 1 postcard that's going to use the CMYK process, and then you're going to create a second postcard that is going to use spot colors. So I thought it would be better if I pushed up the spot color webcast, which is going to be very short. We've covered most of this before, but I want to make it real clear what we're talking about for this lab. In the lab instructions, you will be asked to set up a postcard of 4x6, and there are going to be 3 things that are going to be required for each of these postcards. For the CMYK postcard, you're going to need to have the image in CMYK. All the colors are going to be defined as CMYK, and you're probably only going to use one other color other than whatever colors are in an image if you choose to have an image, which I hope you will. You're going to need a gradient, and you're going to need the bleed. So remember that when you're creating a new file, you need to put in a bleed, in this case, of 0.25 inches on all sides. And these 2 postcards were designed by Cindy Reese. I just loved her samples, so I just kept them for this class. I thought she did just such a nice job on the design of the CMYK version as well as the spot color version. So we spent the last webcast really talking about CMYK and defining those colors and why they're used, and why we have to have 4 inks that are going to produce all these hundreds of colors that we want to do. But let's talk a moment here about spot colors. I just got through saying that typically most of the output that we use is done on paper, is done in CMYK inks. But there are going to be times if a photograph is not involved where print shops mix a custom spot color for accurate, dependable colors that are referenced, that you can choose from a selection. And it's going to be much cheaper to use a spot color than it is going to be to use the CMYK. And here's a perfect example of this. We have a Pantone red, and that's one color, and black is a second color. Now you see a lighter color across the top and the bottom, but that is nothing more than a tint or a lower percentage of the spot color. So it doesn't cost anything extra for that. And so in this case, we can get away with doing a 2-color print job because the white here is the lack of the lack of ink. Obviously, we don't usually put down any white ink. So this is a 2-color job where if we were to produce this using CMYK, it would have been a 4-color job, which would have been more expensive. So in the instructions for the spot color, again, you're going to start a new document just like you did with the CMYK. It's going to be a 4x6. You're going to have a bleed. But in this one, you're going to use this same text. You're going to create an announcement for a fictitious conference on the Adobe Creative Suite 6 held in Santa Rosa on May 10, 2013. Your document can only use black, which is already in the swatches panel, paper, which is essentially don't print here, don't print ink here. It knocks out the ink from any other shape. For instance, this Creative Suite is using paper, which just means that this is printed on white paper, it's going to be white. And then you're going to create a spot color of Pantone 485C, which is the Adobe Red, to create the red swatch that you're going to use. And then you can use a tint of that swatch if you'd like to, and then just whatever design you want to put together. But I want it to be real clear to me that you understand the difference between the CMYK process and using a spot color. So let's go through choosing a spot color. I'm going to take this out of preview mode, and I'm going to go into the swatches panel. We see that right now this red is defined by Pantone 485. It is a spot color. And the almost looks like a pinkish color is the same Pantone color, Pantone 485C, but it's 26% of the Pantone color. So I'll take a moment to talk about that too. We do have a webcast this week that is going to go into swatches and tints, but I want to get this out there. I'm going to just do a quick review of how to create a tint in case anybody wants to get started on their lab. Let's just say that I don't want to use the 485, I want to use something else. Let's just go through that process of creating this particular spot color. I'm going to go to my Pantone swatches menu. Now I can always go down to the bottom and click on the little new icon, and then I can double click on that and define it. But I just like to go to my swatches panel and choose new color swatch. Now before you do that, this is something that catches all of us up over and over again. If you have anything selected and you define a new swatch, it's going to apply that color to whatever is selected. So it's a good idea when you are creating a swatch, maybe not a gradient, because sometimes we want to be able to see how that looks, but unless you want to have a little test object or you don't mind changing that object back, don't have anything selected if you don't want the new color to be applied to it. So let's just repeat this. Go back to our swatches panel menu, choose new color swatch. I want this to be a spot color, and I'm going to choose the color, basically the color company, the ink company that is mixing these and has these definitions. In the United States, we typically use Pantone quite a bit more than anything else, but that doesn't mean that you won't run across Toyo. I know I've worked with people who use that. So for this project, I'm just going to have you go ahead and use the Pantone Solid Coated. It's just very straightforward. In CS6, it's now referencing the Pantone Plus colors. So you click on that library, and all the colors from that library will be available through this drop-down menu. And there are, I mean, just look at the number of these as I scroll through here. I'm giving you the color that you're going to use, but let's say that I wanted to switch it, let's say, to this. I don't want that one actually. I want one that has a number beside it. Let me just flip through here and see. Okay, how about, nope. Okay, how about I go with Pantone 520? If you know the number of the Pantone color you want, and often we do because we're flipping through a little booklet of the colors that we want, and it's really a good idea to double check the color that you think you want. In a hard copy, you can go to a print shop and borrow their little Pantone book. They're very expensive, but if you're in the business, you'll probably have one, or your department will have one. And you'll look at that color and go, oh yeah, that's the one I want. I want Pantone 520. I can go ahead and just click in the field to the right of Pantone. I can type in 520, and that color will pop up. You can also just scroll through. Just realize that there can be some color shifts between what you see on your screen and what is going to be seen when it gets printed. There are several webcasts on lynda.com about color management and what people have to go through to calibrate their monitors and their printers to get them as close to the realistic look of what something is, how something is going to appear in print. And it can cost hundreds to thousands of dollars. There's a device for a couple $100 you can hook to your monitor, and it reads the different colors to try to calibrate. And if any of you are seriously considering getting into digital photography or working on some jobs that are going to be have to be very accurate in their color representation, it's really worthwhile to calibrate your monitor. And you have to have the right kind of monitor as well. I have a friend who's a photographer who always uses hardware to calibrate his monitor. But you'll know if you need it when that time comes through the job and what's expected of you. All right, so I've got this Pantone 520 selected. If I want to create more than one Pantone color, I would click Add and then continue choosing yet another color. But I only need the one, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And I'm going to click on the red box, and I'm going to change its fill to the purple. Now, to create a tint, it's always a good idea, I think, to create the tint in the swatches panel for several reasons, and I'll get into that in that webcast. But you do have the option of filling it with a full version and then going up to your control panel and changing its tint, or right inside of the swatches panel you can change its tint, let's say to, I don't know, let's see what 25 looks like. Oh, not enough. It's going to have to be a lot more than that. Let's say 50, maybe something like that. And actually it ends up looking kind of gray. But I would instead create a tint. And to do that, let me show you real quickly how to do that if you want to get a swatch, is go to your swatches panel and choose New Tint Swatch. And if you have that color selected, it will automatically fill in the swatch name, and everything will be determined for you except for what that percentage is going to be. And if I think I want it to be, let's say 60 or maybe 70, this is a light one. So maybe I want that to be a little bit darker. I guess 70 is okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now I have this 70%, which I can apply just like any other swatch. The beauty of tints is that they're going to carry the exact same name as the regular swatch, but you're going to have a percentage to the right telling you exactly what that tint is. And this is the other great thing about tints, is that if you change the Pantone color, or any color that a tint is based on, it's going to ripple through and it's going to change that color. All right, so if I go into preview, I can see that I get a completely different look here just by changing my Pantone color. So that's what we do to create a new color swatch that's going to be a spot color. We're going to go New Color Swatch. You're going to choose Spot. Spot is only used when you know that you're going to be using a premixed ink. That's the only time you're going to try to define that. I usually let the color be the name, which is why we have Pantone 520. But if you wanted to say, you know, my red, my purple, whatever color you want, that's going to be just fine. It looks like it kicked my other computer off and added it back in. I hope that doesn't mean that we've had any problems with the webcast. All right. The lab will be going up pretty quick, so you now have, I'm hoping, what you need to try to work through the beginning of this in case any of you were trying to get some of this done earlier than later. I just wanted to make sure that you had those two pieces to the puzzle taken care of. I will continue, as I had said before, with workflows. That'll be a real short one, and then we'll get into gradients and the eyedropper tool. So until next time, signing off.